Hi, this is Bill Safer, and welcome to another episode of Hidden Treasures. We are coming to you from WCCA TV studios in downtown Worcester, Mass. You can see us on channel 194, not 13 like before, and you can see us on the World Wide Web at www.wccatv.com. Once again, I am your host for the show Hidden Treasures, where we will try to have you absorb tips and hints on finding treasures at yard sales, flea markets, antique shops, and things like that. And how we achieve this is by having different experts on as guests to help along with your studies. So I would advise to take notes or tape this because, believe it or not, a lot of people have found things from hints from past shows because they've told me. Okay, I always do some shout-outs in the beginning of the shows or hellos to people. I'd like to say hello to my good friend, Bradley Cohen, who owns a great business for all of you out there who collect classic cars or rebuild cars or motorcycles and need titles for them. It's called GetNewTitle.com. GetNewTitle.com works to help individuals, classic and antique car buffs, and collectors obtain valid vehicle titles for all makes and models, and you can check them out under Facebook, and they're located in the Bangor, Brewer, Maine area, but they work all across the United States. I also want to give a shout out to a brand new bakery that's opening up in Millbury called the Cake Shop Cafe, owned by Michelle and Rob, and they're having a grand opening on April 27th. I went and spoke to her, and very, very nice people who watch the show. Okay, thank you. I was going to rename this show the Tom Tomaszek Show because I asked him back right after the last show, but we had so much uncovered material that Tom was gracious enough to come back and do another show because we only scratched the surface. He could probably come back and do two more shows, but he'd probably have to join the union, and I don't know if he wants to do that. Tom? Thanks for coming again.
Pleasure. My pleasure to be back.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me.
My pleasure. Now, Tom, would you tell our viewers something about yourself, your shops, or whatever you do?
I've been doing antiques for over 3 decades and specializing in jewelry, military, paintings, art. And I do appraisals all over the country, a lot though in the Northeast, in Vermont, in Connecticut. I have one coming up soon in Connecticut, town, Stratford, Connecticut. And I also do a lot of appraisals on TV for a couple different antique dahlias, one East Coast Antiques, and I do a lot of work with Stillwater Antiques, which is a group shop located in Greenville, Rhode Island, which people should visit. It's very nice.
Oh, yeah, I haven't heard of that one. I'll have
very
to go
nice
down.
One.
And do you have a shop yourself?
I'm associated. I'm in a group shop in 101A in New Hampshire, 101A Antiques.
Okay.
In Amherst, New Hampshire. And I'm also do work in West Townsend, Mass. at Antiques Associates at West Townsend.
So you're in that sort of town common thing with all the different shops?
Yes, down right in West Townsend, Massachusetts.
I have to go there because not only to see your booth, but the man who does clocks is there.
Right in that area.
And I have a clock I want to show him.
You have Hobart Village, you have Antique Associates at West Townsend, a whole bunch to choose from.
Really interesting. And today I'd like to use your expertise to tell the viewers about jewelry because I see so much of it at flea markets and yard sales, and I had a wonderful woman on who did all costume jewelry. But I want to also talk about fine jewelry because you've told me shared some stories before the show, and other people have shared stories with me of finding diamonds and platinum and gemstones and costume jewelry boxes. So what's some tips you could give our viewers?
It's a good question, and the answer is absolutely look everywhere because there are hidden treasures everywhere. Many people say, well, I'm not going to go to Goodwill, I'm not going to go to the flea market because there's junk there. Don't judge a book by the cover. Really go and take a look. Some of the junkiest flea markets, I've bought some very, very good items, but you need to know a little bit about the items, what to look for.
Okay, for fine jewelry, I try to explain, this is an actual antique dealer who's been in the business for 30 years, and I brought him some English sterling silver cigarette cases, and he said, these aren't sterling, they're silver plate. I had to actually go back and get the book to show him. So people don't know the other markings, and so would you explain to the viewers, if it's not marked sterling, that doesn't mean it isn't?
That's correct. Yeah. Even in this country, sterling is a relatively new term that's basically American. Means it's 925 silver, 925 parts of 1,000, or 92.5%, is silver to be called sterling. Anything under that is silver. Anything that's around 800 is what they call coin silver, because that's what coins are typically made of. But your question is very valid because every country marks their silver differently. In the case of England, starting way back with the guilds, there is a protocol that must be fitted by every single silversmith. When they make something, they have to mark it by certain rules that are governed by the British government. And that would be the quality of the silver, the maker, the year it was made, the reign it was made. So it won't say sterling. It may not even say 925 or 900. It just has marks. Other countries, France, they have little emblems of little animals. And you have to know what the animals are to know what grade of silver or gold. So a lot of times people will come to me and say, I'm sorry, we didn't find any sterling. And then they'll put something out, and I'm going, no, it's not sterling, but it's better than sterling because you have old European silver or Russian silver. Russian silver will typically have a head of a person. It'll say 84. That means 84 parts of that is silver, 84%. People don't know that. They're going to sell something as plate, and it wasn't plate. Recently being last Sunday, at a flea market in Massachusetts that opened for the first day, in the southeastern portion, somebody bought a tray off a person that dealt in scrap metals, copper, brass, and it was solid silver. They didn't know it. They sold it for $6. And the scrap value, which you wouldn't scrap it because there's historical value and antique value, the scrap value was over $600. So it's knowing the little markings will help you.
Well, I had a situation that we spoke about where on eBay, this person had an advertisement for a silver box with holes in the cover. Everybody went by it. But it intrigued me because it sounded so bad that I bet it had to be good. So I went to the auction, and that auction had a picture of the hallmark. She said, there's a marking, and it was the Russian hallmark. And the holes in it weren't like someone shot a machine gun or BB gun. It was professionally done holes that anchored down 18-karat gold letters on the front. I bid $35, and nobody challenged me. Right. I got it for $35. And I brought it in Maine. There was a man who was an expert in Russian, and he valued it at $800 to $1,000. And I sold it to him for, he has to make a profit. So I sold it for $600, but when I only paid $30, and there's no word of sterling on there anywhere.
Correct.
And the letters didn't say 14 or 18 karat gold.
It also happens with gold, too. Many times people say, well, it has to be marked 14 or 10, and that's not true. What happens years and years ago, a lot of gold was not marked. And then when they started marking gold, they'd mark it different ways from different countries. A lot of times you'll have a ring, piece of jewelry marked 585. 585 is 14 karat, but it won't say 14. It's 585 parts out of 1,000, or 58.5 gold.
So if you don't know those numbers, you could pass it up.
750, 18 karat. So you have to 375, roughly 9 karat, which is British and Irish. You need to know that. If you don't, you could be giving something away that's very, very valuable, not knowingly.
It's interesting as you were speaking about gold, because I was looking at some gold from India in China, and I thought it was brass. That's how gold it was. But the woman told me it's like 23 karat or 24 karat. And it really, to us, it doesn't look like gold. It looks like brass because it's so gold, but that's how they wear it.
That is. And they really like the high grade. And a lot of the Asian countries, if it's below like 20 karat, they don't want to wear it. In Portugal, they use 19 karat.
Really?
And a lot of it in China is what you'll see gold, a ring, Chinese. A lot of times it'll be marked Thailand, Cambodian. It'll be marked 999. People say, oh, it's high silver grade. No, that's saying it's 99.9% pure gold.
Oh boy.
You need to know that.
Oh, definitely. Now, you brought some nice things to show us, different kinds of jewelry. So would you explain what the nice things you brought? I
brought an array of jewelry that could be found at flea markets, ranging from very simple jewelry to what we call fine jewelry. And just to give you an idea of what to look for, obviously the word sterling would kind of tell you it has some value.
Okay.
This is a bracelet that would date from the 1950s. It's costume jewelry. It's not high-end. It's what was typically made in New England by companies like Danecraft and other local companies out of Attleboro, Mass. And you look typically at the clasp. That's what it normally look. And this one's marked sterling. But not all silver is marked. This one happens to be marked sterling, which will tell you that the bracelet itself is sterling.
It's beautiful.
And that has a value in the market of only like $30, but if you can buy it for 50 cents, that's a very good return on your investment.
Yes, definitely.
Another thing to look for is this piece I brought, and I've left the price on it. So you could see how items are priced. This is a piece of Art Deco jewelry. It's made by a very famed artist named Rabaji. And he came out of Europe, Eastern Europe, and he moved to New York, and he made very Art Deco, Art Moderne style jewelry. This is actually silver plated on copper, and if you look on the back side, we can turn it over, right there, you can see up in this corner right here the name Rabaji. So you always look for signatures. Again, carry a loop with you, buy a loop. They can be very inexpensive, $2, $3. Look for the names. Many times people will buy the name. This particular pin is priced $48. It's a good buy. It's probably worth around $150 because of the name. So just to show you, it doesn't have to be precious metal, silver, gold, to be worth a lot.
So if it's a known artist.
Exactly. Matisse made copper jewelry. That's a name to look for, Matisse. Rabaji made all types of jewelry. Always look for the names. Haiti Carnegie. These are very famous names.
I've heard of her,
for
yes.
costume. Another jewelry to look for is wartime jewelry because it's cross-purposed. It's collected by people that collect military as well as people that collect jewelry. That is what they call a sweetheart bracelet. It's made for the home front, typically sterling with gold plating on it. And these would have the little wings on it for like Army Air Corps. And somebody in the Army Air Corps in World War II, the States from the Second War period, would buy that for a sweetheart to send home. And sometimes it'll be engraved to Jen, from Bob, and a date. Never take that off. That's to its history. Many people say, take it off, clean it up. I want to put my name on it. Don't. You're ruining history.
I've had a few pieces of sweetheart jewelry, from pins to bracelets to, I even had a thick bracelet that a man bought for his sweetheart back home. It had his company, his rank, where he was.
History.
Beautiful.
Another example I wanted to bring to show you is strictly costume jewelry. This is a piece of costume jewelry. A lot of it was made, and the reason why this is important, a lot of this was made in New England. Made in Rhode Island. At one time, Providence was the jewelry capital of the country.
Right.
A lot of it was made in Attleboro. People making the high school and college collegiate rings would make jewelry. This is a big area for costume jewelry. And this particular piece is a piece of Whiting and Davis. They were famous for handbags, but they also branched out and made jewelry because as the handbag business went away, people changed handbag styles, they wanted to diversify, just like Zippo. When Zippo made cigarette lighters until it became out of vogue to smoke, then they made rulers and other accessories. Same thing with this company.
I didn't know. I know Whiting and Davis from their metal purses and pocketbooks, but I never knew they made jewelry.
They tried to extend their bell curve of the life of the company.
Well, is it true? I understand that Tiffany started out by making jewelry, not stained glass.
That's correct. And then one thing led to the next. Another item that's always very collectible are cameos. And I brought a cameo to show that cameos can be valued from a very low price. A plastic cameo. This is actually a shell cameo. Plastic cameos can be bought for $10. That's a shell cameo made out of a shell, most likely Italian made. That dates from the 1940s. It's gold-plated. It's worth about $35. But some cameos can be worth into the $5,000 and $10,000 range if they're hard stones like sardonyx you mentioned and agates can be worth a lot. One interesting thing about cameos, though, is everybody's grandmother wore them, mother wore them, great-grandmother wore them. And you can date many cameos by looking at the hairstyle of the lady. When these were carved, typically they were carved to people of the period. So if it's a bobbed hairdo, it could be 1920s. If it's long hair, it could be 1950s. Wavy hair for the 1940s. So you can look at a cameo and say, that was done in 1920. How do you know that? By the hairdo.
So they would do the hairstyle of the period.
Exactly, which makes it very interesting.
Now that's a good hint. There's a good hint for people, because if you see somebody with like a flapper, a hairdo, you have what period you have. Yeah.
Exactly. And some of them are signed. Always look on the back of the shelf.
Some are signed.
Famous artists. Some are set in gold, silver, just plated metal.
Can some of those go for big money?
Yes. Some cameos can easily go. The show cameos, top range is typically around $300 to $400 with a 14-karat gold bezel. The bezel is the frame.
Right.
But if you get one in hard stone of somebody famous, like the Prince of Wales, which they would get honoring a coronation or something, then those could be worth $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000.
Wow.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Another thing to be look out for are local collectibles.
Oh, I know what that is.
Pocket watch fob. But what makes it interesting, it's of a local town. It happens to be Southbridge, Mass. It's the War Monument of Southbridge, Mass.
Oh,
a lot of times people will collect these because they're from the area they're from or they remember what happened. Some of these can be very valuable. They could be advertising like Harley Davidson or Indian Motorcycle. Some could be various events. A lot of them are agricultural. There's people that just specialize in agricultural ones, like Case.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And Alice Chalmers. And they can be very low cost, $5, $10, all the way up into the hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And you can find these at yard sales.
So this was whereas the, you might say the lawyers and the doctors would wear watch chains for their pocket watch, this was the working man's.
That was the working man.
They had a watch on the other end, and farmers or anything like that.
And they always tried to buy something that they were proud of because they would wear it. Like if they were part of the locomotive engineers, they'd have a locomotive engineers. This would possibly tell me this person might have been a Civil War veteran.
Ah, right.
You know, before the Civil War, when Southbridge built the monument for the Civil War veterans, he was proud of it and did it.
You know, it's interesting what you mentioned about watches. I was listening to a talk about pocket watches. I know you know pocket watches. And what the man told me, he was a retired watchmaker. He said that when he sold watches back in the 20s and so on, he's passed away, but he said the person would come and pick out the movement, and then they'd pick out a case. And he said, like you said, a wealthy person would pick out a diamond encrusted or tricolor gold, green, rose, and yellow gold. Sometimes they were studded with other kinds of stones, and they'd pick out a 7-jewel movement because they weren't interested in the accurate time. They just wanted everyone to see when they opened that beautiful hunting case watch. And then he said a man from the railroad would come in, he'd buy a 25-jewel movement and put it in a nickel-silver case because he wanted the accuracy.
Exactly right. So you can judge a lot, and it's the history of looking at that what makes it very, very interesting.
And I guess he said the jackpot is if you have a wealthy person that also wants the exact time, whether they were a scientist, then you have the best of both worlds.
Absolutely. Yeah. So don't judge the book by the cover again.
You're exactly
you
right.
could have a great case with a lousy watch and vice versa. So you really got to do your homework and pay attention. Don't rush when you buy something. One of the things I really recommend is don't rush to sell. You know,
so
do your
hold on
homework
to it for a little while, research
do your homework, yes. Let that initial rush get out of you. Do the homework, do a little research, and then show it to a few other people, get a few comments on it, and then make a sale.
Oh, excellent. Tom, I'd like to show, you were kind enough to bring in this beautiful piece of fine jewelry. Where am I here? Oh, there it is. Now this is a tourmaline ring in cabochon form, and Tom was kind enough to bring it in. It's in 14 karat. It's unsigned. Now, see, there's an example. Just to give you a little history of this, though, which makes it interesting to show you, you can buy anywhere. If I was to sell that ring, I'd ask around $2,000 for it. I bought it within the last 2 weeks on eBay, and I paid $500. Wow.
It was $650, or best offer. The person I dealt with is extremely nice. I asked a little bit about the history. Always try to get a little bit about the history. Most people will tell you. They were kind enough to let me know that even before we decided on the price, that they bought it at a yard sale. The person had it not knowingly. It was bought from down in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and actually from what they call Mansion Row, which is some of the houses for the mansions of the big shots in the Bethlehem Steel Company. So this belongs to somebody in the Bethlehem Steel Company. By the mounting being the actual ring itself, you can tell by the age, it has baguette diamonds, 2 of them, kind of large, trillium cut. And then you have the stone itself, which is very translucent, in great condition.
Beautiful, yeah.
Unmarked. The person told me it was tested. It was funny. You can get a good report with people on eBay. They said, we had it tested for 14. And I said, what is the stone? And they said they wanted $70 to find out what the stone was. And we didn't want to go that.
Yeah.
We'd rather have you buy it. So we agreed on $500, not knowingly. And I knew by the pictures, you can tell basically what it is. It was a deco setting that it was going to be good. And sure enough, it was great. It was $500. The people were great to deal with. And positive feedback on both sides.
Well, when you showed it to me, what I liked about it is I collect tourmaline, and I've even mined for it in Maine. One of the best places in the world to mine tourmaline, there are two places that are considered some of the best. One is Maine, and the other is Brazil. This, to me, looks like Brazilian green tourmaline, which almost mimics emerald in a way. But what's unusual about your ring is that they used gem quality tourmaline, crystal clear, to make this. A lot of times the cabochons were cloudy, or they weren't see-through because they would use only the clear for faceting. So that in itself is a rare
That may brings
thing.
up another story. Maybe the person was on business with Bethlehem Steel in Brazil,
Right.
and bought it for himself while he was down there. So it adds more to the story. So try to keep the history to it.
It's true. I know a man that was on business in Africa back in the 40s, and he bought a diamond for a cut diamond for his wife, and had it set when they came back here. I saw it. It was 5.5 carats.
Oh my God!
I went blind. I had to go to the doctor for some treatment, eye drops.
I brought this, Bill, to show you too.
Oh, yes.
This is interesting jewelry. This is called mourning jewelry.
I won't
What
hold this
mourning
against
jewelry
the-
was is years ago, back in the, especially 19th century Victorian days, when a person, male or female,
Yeah.
lost a spouse, a mother, child, they would go into a period of mourning, which typically lasted for 1 year. And during that period, they would never dress in anything white. They would always dress in black. This happens to be made of jet. Now, jet comes all over the world, but this is probably Whitby jet from Whitby, England, which is on the east coast of England, north of York. And it's black jewelry, and people will say, boy, it's ugly. Or they'll say, well, it's Gothic looking. And it is Gothic looking. And it's very collectible. And sometimes you'll find hair jewelry with this, where it's actually used human hair, and they would save it as a memento of the person passing on. So you look for hair jewelry, and you look for jet and other dark garnets jewelry, which is mourning jewelry. It's very, very collectible.
I've had some mourning jewelry. I've had the hair jewelry.
Yes.
Here's another flea market tale, a quick one. I bought at a flea market for $20 a gold silhouette under glass. On the back was the man on the front had passed away. And I wasn't a silhouette, excuse me, it was a painting on ivory.
Okay.
And then when you turned it over, it was his hair. Yeah. And then around the rim said when he died and who presented this to the family.
Fabulous. Yeah. Fabulous. And also now with the internet, you can Google all those names, or you can get a real good resource for that is the Mormon religion. The Church of Jesus Christ and Latter-day Saints has a website that's open to anybody.
Anybody can go on.
Anybody can go on it, and it's like Ancestry.com, another good one. And you can go on there, and you can find the history of these people, and it tells you everything about them, and keep that with the piece, because that adds to the history. And a lot of times you'll learn something like, well, that person fought in a certain battle, and this is indigenous to that area, so he probably brought it back. You can put a tale of story together. It's probably true.
It's just like they say on the Antiques Roadshow. The man said you could have a spoon that's sterling silver worth, $80, $90, and then you could have a spoon that belonged to George Washington, and you can prove it. Then you're talking $100,000. So
a story about that many years ago, and in central Massachusetts, and I'll tell you, it was the town of, Holliston, Mass. I went to an antique show, and you're talking about the jewelry belonging to George Washington. I bought a pair of cufflinks with George Washington's hair in them.
Oh boy!
And when George Washington died, the family made this jewelry, which was mourning jewelry, with George Washington's hair, and gave it to a lot of the congressional members of the House of Representatives and Senate and all. And it didn't say who it was given to, but I bought it there. In the day, I think I paid $40, and I sold it for $400. And today they're probably worth, I would put a price on them about $25,000. And the same, talk about the old days, same show. I said, lightning can't hit twice. The following year, I went to the same show in Holliston, and I bought a sewing machine that was tucked under a table, a very old machine. And when I looked at it, I recognized this was a cross-stitch machine by a patent maker called Batchelder. So I called the Smithsonian Institute, and I was on business at the time down in Charlotte, North Carolina, traveling. My wife got a phone call, and it was the Smithsonian saying, we're flying into the Hopedale Airport because we want to see this machine because we didn't know if it would exist, and we'd like to buy it. And since I knew it was going to the Smithsonian, I agreed to sell it, and they bought it, and it went to the Smithsonian.
To have something that was yours permanently in the Smithsonian is quite an honor, I would do the same thing.
Yeah. it's going to the right place.
There is, I brought this in. I didn't know what it was, and you were kind enough to tell me. It's called, what's that called again?
It's called micro mosaic. There's two styles of this. Back in the Victorian days, there was what they call the Grand Tour. Anybody that had money, it was like a coming out party, would go to Europe for a week or 2 weeks. And they would travel through all the countries of Europe looking at, the Rome, the Vatican. They'd go up into Germany, into France, and they'd bring back souvenirs. And typically in Italy, there were two souvenirs they brought back. Either what they call petrodori, which is furniture that has marble with inlaid like this, but it's usually fruit and vegetables. Or it's micro mosaic, which is very small. And what this is, the outside is onyx stone, and inside are little pieces of semi-precious gems that are actually cut to make a scene.
So those different gems are actually cut by hand and set by hand?
Hand cut and set. And I have seen some with like little teeny bricks where they say things like Roma, and they'll show downtown Rome, they'll show the Colosseum, and it's fabulous jewelry. It's worth a lot. That piece today, in that condition, is probably worth about $100 on that piece.
Wow.
But I've seen pieces that are worth into the thousands if they're signed like Castellani. Famous makers made these also.
Well, we're coming near the end of the show, and I wanted to ask you a quick question, not about jewelry, but of knives. We have about a minute left or less. What can you tell someone very quickly about what to look for in a knife on the table?
When looking for antique knives, first of all, you want to avoid the words Japan, China, Pakistan, India, because those aren't collectible. Germany is okay, but if it has the name of the country, that's not the best, because that means it was made after 1898, or was made for export. People like what's made for this country. You want to look for famous names like old knives, first of all, but Remington, Winchester, Miller, these are the names you want to look for. English knives can be very good too, especially if they have mother of pearl handles, or if they're made in parts of England known for, like Sheffield. They can be very, very collectible.
Well, Tom, I want to thank you very much for coming on the show. I appreciate it. People out there, go out and find a treasure or two by using Tom's tips. Thank you, everyone. Thanks to Frank and Mauro and all the people that make this show possible. Go out and find a treasure. Thanks. Excellent.